Well, it's my privilege to introduce our guest speaker today. Rick Roberts is the founder and head of sales and marketing at RAVN, a technology company he co-founded in 2017 that has grown to nearly 200 employees. Rick and I met recently at the Silicon Slopes conference, and I found out he was a Snow College alum and invited him to come, and he's here. So we were really grateful that we were able to make this work out this semester. Under his leadership, RAVN has helped hundreds of companies scale their operations, with several clients growing from initial concepts to securing tens of millions in funding. The company's client portfolio includes industry leaders like Google, Pinterest, Best Buy, and Skullcandy. His journey began at Snow College, where he played basketball before continuing his athletic career at Southern Utah University. After completing his information systems degree at BYU, Rick worked as a software engineer in Chicago, immersing himself in the startup ecosystem. He later returned to Utah for roles at Instructure and other startups before founding RAVN. Instructure is the parent company of Canvas, by the way, that we all use. Beyond his professional pursuits, Roberts is an avid outdoorsman and licensed pilot. When he's not helping companies scale, he can be found canyoneering, rock climbing, or big game hunting with his brothers-in-law. He lives in Utah with his wife and 4 children, constantly seeking new adventures and opportunities to learn. So please welcome Rick Roberts.
Thanks. All right. Okay, well, I'm excited to be here. See if I can get this turned on. There we go. And I think that's, oh, did it turn off? Okay. I think I'm good on the battery, but did the screen turn off or is it on? I think it's the. I don't know why that is better. So, oh, sorry, I shouldn't hit the mic. I'm excited to be here and chat with you guys a little bit. And I really hope that it can be, obviously, I really want to say something or, share something that can help you guys in your, either whether it's now or in the future in your lives. So I definitely don't want to talk at you the whole time. Hopefully we can make it interactive and at least at the very end want to have some time for questions, just so that it can be as relevant as possible to you guys. Okay, so I might have to kind of dodge here a little bit, but I do think I wanted to share just kind of a little bit about myself. You kind of got it in the introduction, but I think part of my interest and a lot of things that I like to do are relevant to entrepreneurship and kind of the way I see, kind of living a fulfilled life and solving problems and challenges and learning new things. So yeah, I love airplanes. It's kind of my life dream to get my license, and just always been fascinated by aviation and airplanes. And as you can see, this is. I'm sure many of you have shot bigger deer, but this is my son's first deer, so that was a momentous occasion. Love to be outdoors, spend time with my family. So this is my wife and 4 kids at Arches, and this is actually Chichani, the top of Chichani. It's a 20,000-foot volcano in Peru. Definitely had hypoxia on the way down, so it was kind of an intense experience. Here are a couple buddies of mine. Actually, they both work at RAVN. We're canyoneering. I think this is in Capitol Reef. I really enjoy coaching basketball still. As mentioned, I played basketball here at Snow. That was an amazing experience. And I love to mountain bike. Again, just love being outside. This is part of my team in Peru. This is a Colca Canyon. It's actually one of the deepest canyons in the world. It's pretty awesome. Okay, so I wanted to start today kind of going through kind of my life a little bit and talk about how certain things in my life affected the way I approach entrepreneurship and kind of just what led up to my eventually founding RAVN, okay? So, like I said, it wasn't very long ago I was here at Snow College, okay? This was, and even before that, I'm from the American Fork area, Pleasant Grove, Alpine, if you know where that is, just up north, an hour and a half or so. And I would drive down on the weekends to play open gym and kind of work out with the team. So that was super cool. So, Snow's kind of got a soft place in my heart. I like being here. So I came back down, played in the basketball team. My wife and I eventually got married and kind of lived here. This was kind of our first place where we lived together. And yeah, I started my life here, kind of at Snow, my married life anyway. Okay, so let's maybe just kind of, I wanted to touch on a couple things that I want to come out of today. Okay, I really hope that you can gain kind of a new perspective on entrepreneurship. I don't think my path is, I wouldn't say unusual, but it's just a new path, right? I think there's many paths to entrepreneurship, and I think learning about all those different paths hopefully can be beneficial to you. I would love to encourage you, if this is kind of what you want to do, in a way that something sparks interest or a passion in you and gives you confidence and motivation. And then the last thing is, hopefully you have a new supporter in your life. I think one of the most important things about being an entrepreneur is surrounding yourself with people that support you and care about your success. Being an entrepreneur is very lonely at times. It's difficult, and so just want you guys to know, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect and just be a support however I can. Okay, so really quick, if you don't mind showing me, raise of hands, how many, just this is for my kind of benefit here, how many of you have attempted to start a business before? Okay, a couple of people. Who is actively kind of running a business? Okay, we got one. And who wants to make kind of entrepreneurship a part of your life eventually, someday? Okay, a lot. Awesome. Okay, cool. Good to know. All right. So I want to kind of break my life down in 3 parts, the way I see it. I just want to kind of quickly go through some stuff when I was younger, then kind of during college and my early career, and then we'll focus on some stuff about RAVN, because I think that'll be kind of most interesting. But I have some interesting stories, I think, that, well, maybe not super interesting, but something you can learn from. Okay, so early on in my life, I was in, I think, 2nd grade. This was a weird thing looking back. I don't even know why they did this to us, but and this was a long time ago. This was before computers, okay? They didn't have all these things that you guys have on your desk now. They pulled like 5 or 6 of us from my 2nd grade class, and they told us to trade stocks, basically. It was paper trading, but I don't know if they were just experimenting on us or what, but I don't remember learning much about it, or kind of really, I just knew, okay, I got to try to make money buying and selling stocks, right? That was it. And I was probably 8, maybe 7 or 8 years old, maybe even earlier, I don't know. So every day we'd get the newspaper, right? And it kind of looked like this. We'd just have like an alphabetical list of all this stuff and, all these numbers. And I just remember looking at percent change, right? Like what it changed that day. And so we would just go and buy all the stocks that went up like, 15, 20, 25%. We're like, oh, let's buy that one, right? Does anybody trade stocks? Anybody invest in stock market? Okay, so is it a good idea to buy a stock that just went up 20%? Not usually, right? That's probably a bad idea. I mean, unless you have greater context on the business, but it's probably not a good idea to just go look at which stock went up the most and buy it. So we did terrible. It was a horrible failure in a lot of ways, right? We lost a ton of money. Again, paper trading. We were little kids. They're not going to give us money. But it was a really interesting experience. It kind of had an impact on my life. It introduced me to investing at a very early age, and it's something I remember. And so this is something that I think is kind of a theme in my thoughts here today is entrepreneurship. There are so many times where you just kind of have to do it, and you just don't know what you don't know, and sometimes you just have to try. And so I think it's just super important to constantly be exploring, trying new things. And this is really hard for me, but you kind of have to have lack of a fear of failure or embarrassment or things like that. You have to be pretty vulnerable a lot of times. Okay, so that was a let's call it an impactful story. I didn't learn a ton other than it was great exposure. And I guess one more thing I would say is like, if you're interested in things, just go try it out, right? Explore. Okay, my second, and maybe one of my first real attempts at kind of starting a business. I had done other things, but this is one where I kind of like bought a bunch of stuff, invested some money in a detailing business in high school. Okay, so I researched all these materials and supplies. It wasn't the stuff that you go buy at AutoZone. It was like really professional auto detailing stuff. Okay, so I went and bought it all. And okay, so I have a really somewhat embarrassed. So I'm being vulnerable here. I'm still an entrepreneur. So this is an embarrassing story for me. I had a buddy, and I kind of was like, we were doing it together a little bit. He really didn't do much, but I kind of had sold two deals, right? So I had two cars that we had to detail, an Audi and like a 4Runner. And these are actually from about the year. So these were nice cars at the time, right? These were like, it's probably like 99, 2000. So I kind of lived in an affluent neighborhood and I wanted to detail their cars. And so I was doing the Audi, he was doing the 4Runner. And so I was not a good businessman. I spent probably 12 hours on this car. It was perfect. And at the end of the day, I went and took this car back to my neighbor, and I just kind of, I felt weird telling him how much it was going to cost. And so I kind of just said, well, I don't know. What do you think, it's worth? Don't ever do that. That's a really bad way to approach being a business person. You should be confident in kind of what you're worth and just tell them the price. I still deal with that today too, right? I'm in software, and sometimes things are expensive. It's difficult to give somebody an estimate and just kind of be confident in that price of what you're worth, what your work is worth. So I told him, like, I don't know, what do you think it's worth? And he paid me $80, which was fine, right? But I had spent 12 hours on this car, supplies, so it probably wasn't, even back then, a super great return. My buddy, on the other hand, I think he had something going on Saturday, and so he was kind of in a rush, and he put like 2 hours into this 4Runner and gave it to the guy, said $100, paid him $100, gave him a $20 tip, And so we weren't partners in the sense that we were sharing all our money. He just kind of got this big payday, and I was feeling pretty mad, right? I was like bummed out. I spent all this time working on this car, and my business partner didn't put as much time or effort into it and made nearly double what I did. So this was an experience that I didn't know what I was doing, but I was just putting myself out there, trying to start a business, learning, and went through some embarrassing times or maybe even frustrating times, but I learned a lot. I learned that, as a business person, you can't really be wishy-washy. You got to be confident. You got to know your business. You got to learn it. And, pricing is a big part of being an entrepreneur, right? And being confident in pricing your services. So for context, my RAVN is a services-based business. So we provide services. We don't really sell things, right? We sell our work. So this was, again, a services business. I was selling my, cleaning service on cars. So anyway, that was kind of an interesting thing. So I wanted to take just a second. I'd love to pause, and I'd love to hear if anybody has like a story. A few of you kind of raised your hand, said you started businesses. Does anybody have a similar experience where you had, let's call it a failure, that you learned something important from? And I've got, yeah, go ahead. And encouragement for people. So this is a custom RAVN deck of cards. It's beautiful. So anybody that shares gets a custom RAVN deck of cards.
Me and my brothers have like a little lawn mowing business, and like how you were saying, like telling people how much they needed to pay. Like we were what, 12 and 10 years old, and so we're like, oh, like whatever you think it's worth. So like this one dude started paying us in silver, and so like that was like our secret. Just like, what the heck? He gives like a half an ounce of silver for mowing his lawn, and we're like, we don't even know what to do with this. So, like, that was kind of just like, well, we did all this work, but got paid in silver, and I don't know where we'd go to sell that or whatever. So that was kind of like a little bummer as a kid.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Be confident. And people will tell you no. There's a Gary Vaynerchuk quote where I think when people were starting to ask him to speak, he said like $5,000, and they're like, sure, no problem, right? And he was like, oh crap, I should have said 10, So next time he said $10,000, and he just kept upping his price until somebody kind of said no to him. So anyway, cool. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so phase 2 of my life, college and my early career. Okay, so there's 3 things that I kind of wanted to touch on that were, for me, kind of impactful. So I was always involved in a lot of things, basketball, school. School was really important to me. Hobbies. I'm always kind of a nerd. Like I loved RC airplanes and building things and just all kinds of stuff. And so being in school, in college, and on the basketball team, I see there's probably a couple people on sports teams here. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, it's tough, right? You have a lot of, being a college athlete is exhausting. It's tiring, right? You're working out, you're going to games, you're traveling. I don't know how they travel here, but we would just slam into like a 15-passenger van and drive to Colorado, get stuck in some kind of storm, and spend the weekend on the highway. It was exciting. So through that experience, I had to learn discipline. I had to learn how to work hard and organize my time. And those are things, at least in my opinion, that are critical to entrepreneurship, because as an entrepreneur, there's always something you can do. There's always more you can do. And if you have kind of a 9-to-5 job, you probably go in, do your job, go home. But as an entrepreneur, there's really, like, you could just spend 24 hours a day working on your business and trying new things, which is not very sustainable, right? So you have family, you have maybe church or other things that you're serving, donating your time to are really important. So in college, that was one thing I really learned how to do. And so kind of my message to you, my encouragement is now is a really good time to learn those skills, right? Develop those skills now so you don't have to, later on. Like it's such an awesome time period in your life to learn these skills of discipline, hard work, organizing your time, prioritizing your time, scheduling, just being organized. The other thing, I think I was okay at this, but I have a ton of regret that I didn't spend enough time building strong relationships in college. Do everything you can to be friends with as many people as you can. And stay in touch with them. Encourage them, support them, right? Find ways where you can reach out to others. You never know what's going to come down the road. So this is actually a picture of me, at the Silicon Slope Summit where we met, in front of our booth, and my 2 business partners, my founders. So on my right is Mike Elizabeth, on my left is Brandon Plume. We went to school together. So Brandon sat in front of me in the information systems program at BYU. Micah was an entrepreneurship program. So that's where we met. We kind of went our separate ways after college, but eventually started RAVN together. And along with that is, there are so many people that I've met in college and stayed in touch with that have had a big impact on my careers, whether it's making a referral or connecting me with a potential job opportunity or just advice and learning about what they're doing. So this to me is, if you take anything away from this, do this. Reach outside of your friend groups and get to know as many different people as you can, and be interested in what they're doing. I know it's awkward sometimes, but find ways to be interested in what they're doing and support them. Okay. The last thing, learn as much as you can. This is an awesome time period in your life to just learn as much as you possibly can. So you have your normal coursework, which is probably a lot, but this is a picture of Objective-C. Does anybody take like computer science or code? Nobody? So yeah, hopefully my content's relevant, because I'm very much in the tech space. So if you're interested in that, this will be really useful, but hopefully there's other stuff. Obviously there's all kinds of businesses you could start, but so this is Objective-C. When I first saw this, I was like, what the heck is that? I have no freaking clue. So I was learning how to program in class, but we were doing like Java And Objective-C this is how you build iPhone apps originally back in 2008, 9 when I was starting. Had all these weird brackets and things like that. I was just completely lost. There's some weird stuff where you have to like init, you have to like instantiate the stuff, and you have to do memory counting and stuff. It was really, really complicated. And I felt so lost and confused, but I really wanted to write iPhone apps. That's what I wanted to do. And so I had to learn this. So I took time, nights and weekends to learn how to write code in Objective-C. That's way easy nowadays. You have so many cool tools to do this, but back then it was really hard. So my point here is learn as much as you can. It's such an awesome opportunity to learn, explore, experiment with things you're interested in, and yeah, just take advantage. Okay. I'm gonna kind of go a little bit quick here so I can spend some time on RAVN and have some time for questions. But the iPhone, okay, this is my first digital product, like I guess company I tried to build. I was in college. I wanted to build iPhone apps. The iPhone had just come out. It was like, to me, it was mind blowing. You guys have to put yourself back in 2008. Okay, we didn't have. What did we have? We had like the Nokia little phones, right, with the little screens. We had like the TI-84, right? That was, who used a TI-84? Do you guys still use those? Yeah? Okay. The TI-84. But then the iPhone came out, and it was this glass screen that to me was like an infinite combination of buttons and things you could press. Like, right? And that's how I saw it. It was just this really revolutionary device, which is ubiquitous now, but that had a huge impact on me. And I think as an entrepreneur, it's important to try to recognize those things, right? What are those things that are kind of revolutionary, that are going to change the way we do things? And it's a great opportunity to be part of those. Obviously, it's not the only way, but that's kind of what I saw. Okay, so I created this app. I was like, I want to do something with basketball. It was an app that you would, tap for a make, double tap for a make. And that was another cool thing. It's like, wow, you can recognize a single tap and a double tap. So you could tap on the court and it would generate like a heat map of where you're making and missing shots during a game. So that was pretty fun. The other thing I learned doing this is a business is not just, at least in tech, is not just an app. Like there are so many components to building a business successfully. And, me putting this app on the App Store wasn't enough, right? You have to do marketing. You have to, like pricing stuff we talked about, maybe partnerships, or you have to continually update and advance this thing, right? There's a lot of work that goes into it. So having a good business strategy. I can't remember if I put this in my slides, but I'll mention this now. I have tried to start I was always exploring, like trying to launch these little apps and things like that. One thing I don't regret, but one thing looking back, I'm like, man, this dumb little shot charts thing probably could have turned into a decent business if I had kept going with it. And I probably gave up too soon. So you never know. I really think that you have to be realistic, right? You can't dedicate, 20 years of your life on a dead-end project. But I think it's more common to give up too soon on some of these ideas or concepts, right? And another thing I want to talk about later too is you just don't know where things are going to go, right? What opportunities you have if you start building and keep building and improving and just advancing your product, okay? All right. Yeah, well, that's what I was going to talk about. Okay. I'd love to, real quick, we have time. I'd love to hear from you guys. What opportunities, like I saw the iPhone. I was like, man, to me, this is going to change everything. That's what I saw in 2008 or so. Does anybody have something that you're kind of really interested in right now? You see that there's kind of either a trend or something you're super passionate about that is new and exciting? Yeah.
I would say like AI.
Okay. Yeah. What about it?
I don't know. I just think it's interesting, like how like What it is. It's one of the points. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay, AI. Yeah, I think that's definitely pretty new, right? And exciting and terrifying at the same time. Does anybody have any thoughts on AI or any questions? Okay, what else? Any other exciting? Oh yeah.
It's not necessarily a new thing, but it's kind of a trend that has died off is trades because everybody's getting into the tech world and everything like that. But all of those trade jobs, there's not people filling them. And so it's kind of a new market that not a lot of people are looking at yet. So
Yes, 100%. I 100% agree with that. So last year, I went in on a partnership with my airplane. We actually fly out of Nephi, not too far from here. And there's a thing called an AMP mechanic, and you're certified to work on the aircraft and the power plant of the aircraft. And man, those guys are going to be super valuable in a few years. I 100% agree with that. I think there's going to be a huge shortage of skilled labor and things like that in trades, and it's an exciting opportunity. And even if you start out as a tradesman doing the work yourself, that could evolve into a great, great business. And that's kind of how I started RAVN. To be honest, we just wrote code. Like I spent first 5 years of RAVN billing 40 hours a week. You know, that's what I did. That's what we did to build the business. And so, yeah, I love that comment. Anything else? Oh, I thought it was a hand here. What's your name? Jean. Do you want cards?
Thanks. In the same area, I'm thinking about AI, most in Africa, in agriculture area. I think it's gonna impact a lot with the technology, and I think in the future, we will need people that will manage all that advance all software, new software related with agriculture and AI to be more productive.
Cool. Awesome. Making agriculture more productive through technology, AI, and I know they're doing a lot of cool stuff with drones and things like that, right? Very cool. Yeah. Awesome. Great. Sorry, you want me to wrap up at 1:30? 1:20? 1:20. Okay. All right, cool. All right, let me talk a little bit about RAVN, then I'd love to have some time for questions at the end. Okay, so real quick, well, actually, yeah, so I'll speed through kind of my career. So I moved to Chicago after graduating in information systems at BYU. I did some software development for a company out there. Here's a few little like kind of projects that I did. You know, on the bottom right, I had some buddies. We entered a hackathon. We ended up winning it. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up is like just be involved, be active. When I was in Chicago, I loved. I worked downtown, but you know, they had all kinds of events, right? They had like these startup tech events. They had, you know, they were entrepreneurship or, you know, just in that space. And I would attend as many as I could, right? And just go learn and be part of the community. That had a huge impact on my career. In the top left here, this is at WWDC, which is a big like Apple event. Apple was a big part of my early career. So that was super, super fun to go to San Francisco. And I was actually there the year they launched Swift. And if you're not in that world, probably don't know what that is, but it was a really kind of new and exciting language that Apple released to write iPhone apps. Okay, so RAVN. All right, let's go. Fast forward to 2017. So let me see. So it was 2017. I had just kind of finished another startup. Well, they ran out of money, so I was out of a job. And my two business partners that I showed you earlier, we were all kind of in the same spot. We all had very similar backgrounds, similar skill sets, and it was just a really good time. Like, just things lined up, you know, and it was a great time for us to do something new. We had the skills, the experience. I identified a problem because we had worked in this industry for so long and recognized that there were some there was some friction and pain points that we saw in working with third-party development shops that we wanted to solve. Okay, and so this was scary. Not to get too personal, but I had a lot of stuff going in my life. Like my daughter actually had leukemia and was going through chemotherapy at the time, and some, a lot of hot doctor visits and stuff like that. I didn't have much money. I was like, this was a big risk not to have an income for a while. We had enough to kind of like say, if this doesn't work by this time, we got to figure something else out. I was fortunate enough at the time where I think I could have gotten a job at a software at a firm pretty quickly. So anyway, we just kind of said, hey, we each put $10,000 in. Like it was pretty much like all of our savings. And so we had $30,000 in the bank. It was 3 of us and 1 employee. And we just started trying to find clients. Like we didn't have any clients. It was terrifying. So we just went out there, networked, tried to find clients. We got a couple projects. And thankfully, we kind of got through that time period where that $30,000 got us to a point where we were becoming profitable, right? And we could make money. That first year was a grind. I mean, I can't tell you how many, like not late nights, like all-nighters, right? Where you work all day through the night just to deliver a project by like noon the next day. I mean, probably going to suffer consequences later for that. But it was hard work, man. And so that first year we were small. We eventually hired on a couple of BYU grads to come help us out. I'm kind of speeding through here because I'd love to answer some questions. But we hired these BYU grads, and they were great. They were really good, but it was tough for us because they were expecting really high salaries, and they all wanted to work at Facebook and Google, right? At the time, like they wanted that resume builder logo. So as a business, we had a problem. We were small. We were actually having success, like selling the business, but we didn't have a way to fulfill on that work. And the people that we were hiring were just leaving. Also, they were very expensive. And so we took a different approach and we wanted to work. So we started looking in Latin America. I know there's a couple people here from Latin America, which is cool. And so I found a guy. I did a lot of research in markets and education and all that kind of stuff, and found a place in Peru. And we found an engineer there through, again, some relationships, networking. I served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. My companion was actually from Peru. He introduced me to somebody. Anyway, build relationships. It can really change your life. So he introduced me to somebody, and we started working with him. He was great, and he had 2 friends. We brought him on. So pretty soon we had, I think, 4 or 5 engineers in Peru, and just working from their homes, and I think I'll get to pictures in a minute. I gotta go down there and check this place out. It was a place called Arequipa, Peru. And I'd never been there before, obviously. I bought a plane ticket, went down there. I don't know if I didn't like Google what this place was like, but looking back, it's so weird. But I remember landing, coming down in the plane, and it was shocking. The whole place was a complete desert, huge volcanoes, like just right outside of town. There was not a plant like in sight. And as an American growing up hearing about Peru, you see Machu Picchu, right? It's like, that's what I had in my mind. So I'm like, what is this place? This is insane. And so we landed and went downtown, met my team, and it was like awesome. We just spent 2 weeks working together. I went and found an office for them to work in. And I think I have a picture of that first office in a minute. So our expansion to Latin America really changed our company. It allowed us, so there's a lot of companies in software development that we're doing like India, Eastern Europe, and those kind of things, but we didn't want to do that just because we love to communicate, collaborate in real time with our team, right? That was so important to how we built products. So you will have strong opinions or thoughts on how you want to build your business, like what's the most impactful thing, and I would just lean into those, right? You'll learn, but this is something we felt so confident in, and we leaned into it, and I think we were a little bit on the like leading edge of a trend. Like this Latin America concept is very popular now, and there's a lot of companies doing it, but we were fairly early on that. Okay, so yeah, questions?
To clarify, what you're saying is because of the time zone difference between India and Eastern Europe,
Yes.
U.S., there's not that time zone difference with Latin America.
Yes.
So that allows you to collaborate real time with your team there.
Exactly. So we had all worked on teams with on product teams with people from India, and hated it, to be honest. It was terrible. Like, you have to wake up really late at night, have these meetings, and then you're like, hey, good luck, have fun during the day, and then I have to check and see what you built, and if it's wrong, you lose a day, right? And so there's all these inefficiencies that we did not like. Now, there's great engineers, right, in those areas, but just for the types of products we were trying to build, specifically startups, is like that, you just can't afford that wasted time and wasted communication. So we really leaned into this concept of we had to have a team. We had two things that we set out to do. It has to be real time. They have to work US hours. And the second thing is we wanted to build the team from scratch. We didn't want to go find an existing team down there. We knew what it took to build great products, and we wanted to find those people, train them, and then put them on US clients. We spent a lot of time. So a lot of these software development shops, a lot of them are kind of, I would say, built by maybe like a biz dev person or somebody that's really good at sales, and then they kind of, give that work to engineers to fulfill. We're kind of the opposite. We're just engineers. We're terrible at sales. We don't know how to do that. That's kind of the hardest part of our business. And it was mentioned that I am in charge of sales and marketing at RAVN, which is way outside of my comfort zone, right? It's not my background at all. And so it's a new challenge that I'm kind of learning right now. So, okay. So I've talked about kind of two phases of RAVN, like early stage, this, kind of really finding out what your company is going to be like, what's your sweet spot, what's your advantage. And that was kind of us figuring out this dual shore approach of having team here in Utah and Latin American offices as well. So the third phase was like, how do we optimize this? How do we really grow and scale and lean into this model? And so part of that was finding other key team members that could help us free our time up so that we could do other things. As I mentioned, I was billing 40 hours a week plus running a business. I mean, that 40 hours billable, and then sales, marketing, like legal, taxes, like doing all that stuff on the side, it was a lot of work. So I had to find resources to start taking that off my plate so that we could think more strategically about the business. Okay, so that's pretty much like it. Let me just fly through some of these kind of nostalgic images from RAVN. So this is the first thing I did. I just grabbed a book and I started drawing a logo, and kind of, you can kind of start seeing it come together here. And our logo is pretty much the same as it was since we started. Here is our team. We actually went to San Francisco for like some networking stuff with our original kind of little group with some of the BYU kids that I mentioned. Here is one of our first trips to Peru. On the bottom right, it's like one of our first offices. We're just walking through the office. Some of our first team members. I mean, that was a little later. We'd grown a little bit by then. Here's me. This is kind of in the Plaza de Armas, like the center of the town. They have a big area, big square. This was our very first office in Peru and our first team. The lighting is wonderful. It was actually really cool because out that window you could see one of the volcanoes. It was called Misty. Just this very impressive volcano. It was super cool. It was like a really awesome office, but tiny, very humble, right? Fast forward to kind of today. Like, we have two really awesome offices that we've built out. We did all the construction on those offices, built them the way we wanted to do it. It was important to us. Here's our Peruvian team. This was like an event, like a sports day we did. It was kind of fun. Played a lot of soccer and other games. This is our Peru office. That's Donovan. He's been with us since the beginning. He's one of he's our first employee. And Ricardo, an amazing engineer. And Yeah, so I was going to talk through some challenges and things, but let me just pause. I'd love to take some questions. Does anybody have any questions about anything I've said or anything related to entrepreneurship? Yeah, first one here, and then we'll come here.
So yeah, I'm an international student. I just want to ask you, when trying to expand to Latin America, are there like any cultural or language barriers that may like to help us ability to partner? Or
Yes, yes. Yes. Were there any, so as we expand to Latin America, were there any cultural or language barriers? So I spoke Spanish. I learned Spanish on my mission, which was really helpful. Our team does speak English, but going down there and being able to talk to professors at the universities, accountants, attorneys, right? That was super, super helpful. I don't know how I would have done it otherwise. It would have been very difficult. So yeah, learn, now that I guess my recommendation with there is just keep learning skills, right? Develop skills throughout your life, whether it's language or, finance or anything. If you're an entrepreneur, all of those things are going to help you in some way at some point. That's the cool thing about it. Like diverse skill set is so beneficial. Cultural differences were huge. That was huge. It's still a problem today. I shouldn't say a problem, a challenge. You go down there and you kind of assume everybody thinks like you do. No, not the case at all, right? It's completely different. And not that it's bad, it's just different. And it's really important to understand that, especially if you're working in Latin America. So yeah, you had a question?
Besides, like, obviously being in two physical different places, what, like, challenges do you have working with, like, a crew that's not in America, like, in your actual space, if that makes sense? Like, where they're, like, thousands of miles away. What, like, makes it?
Yeah, okay, great question. So working with a remote team, so one of the advantages that we have is time zone, right? So again, we were really worried about quality as we grew RAVN because we kind of looked at ourselves like we had a lot of ego and pride in our work, right? We wanted to be the best, which is good. And we were worried about that. So time zone, being able to work hands-on with our team was critical. So as an engineer, all these projects we did, I was basically the lead developer working on them with our team. So that's one way we resolve that. The other way we've resolved that is just having offices. Like we didn't really lean into this fully remote work concept. We have physical offices, which we love. And it does a lot of different things for us. It helps us have a place to congregate, right? Build culture. We focus our recruiting around that area. And so we have kind of a presence in the community, which is really nice, kind of a reputation there. And so that works. Technology helps so much, work with a remote team. We're just constantly in Slack. I don't know if you guys use Slack, but we're in Slack all day. We do daily stand-ups with our team. We have tools and reporting. We've actually built tools. I'm happy to kind of show you some of the stuff we've done at some point, but we've built tools to help us kind of track what everybody's working on at scale. Like we've developed our own products for RAVN internal, which is kind of cool. So yeah, great question. Yeah, over here.
Are you continuing to like expand your business, or is it at the point now where you're just doing what you're doing, making what's the vision for it?
Yeah, we want to keep. Can I toss this to you? You mind? So we want to keep growing. We want to keep growing the business, and yeah, there's a lot to talk about there. But we try to do it at a comfortable pace where we're not like overextending ourselves. But yeah, we want to keep scaling. So okay, I think we do have time for one more.
One more.
Okay, somebody over here. Yeah, go ahead.
It's like, what's something you wish you would have known, like before starting a business?
Something I wish, there's so many things. There are so many things. One thing that I wish I would have known is, man, that's a tough question. I would say that I'll give myself a little credit. Like I think I did a decent job at preparing myself for entrepreneurship. I just wish I would have leaned into those things more, like building relationships, just learning as much as I possibly could. And being confident maybe in my abilities and not second guessing myself, or just having the patience to see something through to the end. So that obviously has worked out for me at RAVN, but I think there's a lot of projects that I worked on in the past that I kind of gave up on too early. I would say stick with it. I think I had a slide on here that said stick with it. I think that's one thing that I really wish I would have kind of known is just, man, just stick with it. Just keep working at it, and see what you can make from your business. So, okay, well, thanks you guys. Hopefully this was helpful. Yeah, it's an exciting time in your life. In a lot of ways, I'm kind of jealous. You got a lot of amazing opportunities, and excited for the future. So thanks, appreciate it.
Thanks, Rick.